difficulties with the audio initially, but inshallah it seems that everything is working right now. So we will continue with this meeting without any delay. The goals and objectives of this particular course today is to review the effects of fasting on the health of the individual, especially during the long fasts, which many of us, especially in the West, are going to be experiencing. What precautions do we need to take to make sure that we are fasting in a healthy manner? And by fasting in a healthy manner, we will be able to maximize our spiritual opportunities and keeping our bodies healthy. We will also talk about some special consideration for people suffering from certain chronic illnesses, and I'll highlight some of them. Some issues related maybe to pregnancy and young children who may be wanting to fast in the summer months. We'll just touch on that very briefly. I'm sure you may have some questions around that area, and we'll be able to try and obviously respond to that. And then we'll also talk about how, from a medical perspective, the holy month of Ramadan is actually an opportunity also for enhancing health habits in the long term. Now, in order to talk about healthy fasting, the best way from my perspective is to remember the 5 M's. And once you remember the 5 M's, this will help you with your fasting and making sure that you fast in a healthy way. Remember, if you fast in a healthy way, this will allow you to have a better mindset. Your mind will be better. Your body will not be as tired. You'll be able to concentrate more, and therefore you will be able to maximize the benefits of the spirituality of this great month. If you don't plan your fasts properly, then it affects your spirituality, and that's why we want to talk about the importance of health in fasting. So the 5 M's that you want to remember is, number 1 is monitoring your health. Number 2 will be around meal planning. We'll talk a lot about meal planning. Number 3, making the most of fasting. Number 4, medication management. And number 5, movement. So these are the 5 things that we will talk about, the 5 M's. That's what you want to remember. Now, when you talk about monitoring your health, this is extremely important. There are measures that are available, the parameters that are available that can be easily measured. And for people who suffer from certain illnesses, you need to make sure that in these long fasts, you are monitoring your parameters. So for example, for diabetics, it is very important that you monitor your blood sugar during your fast. And we'll talk a little bit about, whether you can or cannot fast if you're a diabetic. Most diabetics... Your line is now unmuted. So we will want to make sure that you monitor your blood sugars. You should be monitoring your blood sugars at least twice a day whilst you're fasting. And that will allow you to make sure that you are doing the right things in your fast. People with high blood pressure should be able to monitor their blood pressures, because there's now machines that you can buy from the pharmacy that will allow you to monitor your blood pressure. You can monitor your weight and changes in your weight and so on and so forth. So any parameters that you can monitor during the holy month of Ramadan, during the fasting time, you should be actually monitoring those parameters to make sure that you are continuing on a healthy fast. Of course, there are some warning signs, and the warning signs that is the most important in the summer months is dehydration. You want to make sure that you are well hydrated in this holy month of Ramadan, because with dehydration will come all the potential complications that you may have in this month of Ramadan as far as fasting is concerned. People who are diabetics may have some signs such as trembling, headaches, dizziness, sweating, extreme tiredness, paleness, blood vision, mood changes, extreme hunger. Now, a lot of you may say, well, in these long fasts, when it comes to when it's 7 o'clock, 8 o'clock in the evening, I start to get some of these symptoms. What I'm talking about is the symptoms, the intensity of the symptoms becomes quite pronounced in people, who are diabetic, whose blood sugars may be really low. So you're actually trembling, you feel very, very tired, you feel very, very weak, you feel quite dizzy. Some of the people whose blood sugars are low, of course, they may even get into problems and faints and so on and so forth. So the intensity of these symptoms can become quite bad, and therefore you want to be able to monitor yourself and make sure that your blood sugars are in good range. Monitoring your blood sugars will not break your fast. Certainly in accordance with Ayatollah Sistani's fatwas, it will not break your fast. So doing glucometer tests, will not break your fast. That's why you want to continue to do that. The next M is around meal planning. It's really important that you avoid greasy fried foods and heavy sweets. And that is, for a lot of us in the cultures that we're from, we eat a lot of greasy foods at iftar. What greasy foods and heavy sweets do, they give you a very high sugar peak, and then after that high sugar peak, there is an immediate decline of the sugar. And that's the kind of thing that you want to avoid. You want to avoid those high peaks and those very lows that go immediately down. That's what happens is when you get that high peak of sugar, when you eat really heavy sweets and greasy fried foods in iftar, what happens is by the time you reach, the morning hours, your sugar level has gone down quite significantly, and it is a precipitous decrease in your sugar, and that will make you feel really weak, really unwell, and very tired, very fatigued, and so on. And that's the kind of thing you want to avoid. You also want to avoid increased caffeine and energy drinks. Now, people will say to me, well, after we break our fast, we got to have a cup of tea. And there is absolutely no problem in having a cup of tea when you break your fast. But remember to have 3-4 cups of tea, or have coffee and lattes and mochas and things like that. These are very high in caffeine. And caffeine is actually a diuretic. So what that means is caffeine will actually make you lose more water and will increase your risk of dehydration. So you want to try and avoid that. You also really want to try and avoid those energy drinks. You can't have Red Bull when you're fasting in the holy month of Ramadan. You shouldn't be doing Red Bull anyway because it contains a steroid called taurine, but you certainly shouldn't be doing it in the holy month of Ramadan during the fasting. The energy drinks are very high in sugar, and some of them have the steroids that give you that boost of energy. But just as they give you that high of that energy from that energy drink, just as fast you will get that low when the levels go down precipitously, and that's what you want to avoid. Of course, you want to maintain a diet close to your regular non-fasting diet. That's assuming that your non-fasting diet is not made up of greasy fried foods and heavy sweets. If that's the case, then you want to change your diet. Otherwise, maintain your diet as close to your regular non-fasting diet as you can. And what you want to do is have small, frequent meals and avoid what's called carbohydrate loading. We love to load carbohydrates when we're fasting. And if you look at all our iftars and all the invitations that we get, we carbohydrate load. Even when we get to suhoor, and this time, you will have your fasting in some countries and cities, fasting will, finish about 9:30 or so in the evening, and suhoor will be like 2:30 or 3 in the morning. So the gap that you have is very low. When you get to like midnight, 1 o'clock, 2 o'clock, or you're waiting, or you're waking up for suhoor, a lot of us feel, I better load myself with food so that I can make it throughout the next day. The problem with loading is that we do carbohydrate loading most of the time. So you have your pakoras and your bhajias and your samosas and all of those things in the middle, at suhoor. And what happens is that, again, you get a peak, and then by the time you're there in the afternoon of your day, you have really declined your levels of sugar and nutrients, and now you end up getting a very significant low, and so you feel really quite fatigued, you feel quite tired, and you start to get all kinds of other symptoms that makes your fast very difficult. So you want to avoid this carbohydrate loading, and I'll talk to you about what we should be eating to make our fast much easier. So this is just to show you that if you are planning on having baklava or jalebi, I can give you my address in Vancouver. You just send that to me, and I'll look after it for you, inshallah, and save you from having a bad Ramadan. The other important thing about meal planning is water, water, and water. You must have lots of water, especially in the summer months, and you need to have water rather than other drinks. Avoid fruit juices because they are very high in sugar. The fruit juices that you get are very high in sugar. Like I mentioned, you want to avoid cola drinks because they are not only high in sugar, they also have caffeine and acid in it. Diet drinks still have caffeine and acid in it. Even the non-caffeinated diet drinks still have caffeine-like substances in it. So you want to be really quite concerned. Dehydration is the major concern in this holy month of Ramadan, especially in people who are living in places where it is summer and the days are quite long. And there are many problems, consequences of dehydration.
Your line is...
You can have people with fainting, people can collapse, people can faint, people can have seizures. It can be, in severe cases, quite fatal. But even in mild to moderate dehydration, you get a lot of fatigue, tiredness, dizziness, headaches, and so on and so forth. If you are having these severe symptoms,
your line is now unmuted.
If you're lying down and you stand up or you sit up and you find that you feel extremely dizzy, that is a time when, if you have still a few hours left before you break your fast, that's a time when you should be thinking about, is this a time where I would need to break my fast? And from a fiqh perspective, you need to make sure that you follow the guidelines of the marj al-taqlid that you do. But it's really important that you monitor yourself with dehydration. One of the complications of dehydration is that it can cause thrombosis, which means blood clot and the blood clot in the legs can actually go into your lungs, and it can cause very serious problems. And the other thing with dehydration, of course, is that it will cause constipation. And so your diet and how you plan your meals become very, very important. We talked about caffeine and trying to avoid caffeine as much as possible. So important thing is make sure you wake up for suhoor. I don't know what somebody wants me to repeat the last part, so I'm not sure what it is that you want me to repeat. Maybe I went over it too fast. About the blood clots, what I'm saying is that if you have severe dehydration, it puts you at risk for having blood clots in the legs. And those blood clots in the legs can actually go into your lungs as well. So you want to be really careful, that you hydrate yourself properly. The other thing is that one of the other side effects, or one of the other consequences of dehydration, of course, is that it can cause constipation as well. And so you want to be clear as far as what your diet is concerned. Okay. The one thing that is important is make sure you wake up for suhoor. Even if in the past you did not have a habit of waking up for suhoor, in these holy months where the fasts are really quite long, you have to wake up for suhoor. When you wake up for suhoor or sehri, what you need to do is you need to eat what are called complex carbohydrates, and you need to eat protein. The reason is you want to avoid that peak of sugar that I talked about, and then a precipitous decline that you get when you eat sugary stuff. But if you eat protein and complex carbohydrates, what you will do is you will get a very steady increase in your sugar, and it will remain quite steady throughout most of the day. Because what happens with complex carbohydrates and protein is your absorption is done over time. It's a slower absorption, so it takes time for the food to get absorbed from your digestive tract, and it gives you a much better protection throughout the day. So what you want to eat is some protein. So if you have and complex carbohydrates, the best example I give is what I've seen in some Middle Eastern countries. Not all Middle Eastern countries, because some Middle Eastern countries, if you go to some of them, they're just having a party all night in the holy month of Ramadan, and they're really carbohydrate loading. So that's not what I mean. But in some of the Middle Eastern countries, they have like a bread which is made up many times of whole wheat, or it is a naan, and it is made up of whole wheat, and they have a white feta cheese with that. White feta cheese, naan bread, and yogurt, best suhoor you can have. That's what you want to do. That's the suhoor that you want to be with, right? And you don't want to load yourself with pakoras and bhajiyas and samosas and a few jalebis on the side, in suhoor. It's a bad idea in this long fast. You want to do what's right. So somebody asked me yesterday, what about, can I have eggs? Absolutely. Eggs are great. You can have 2 eggs a day in the holy month of Ramadan, even if you have problems with your cholesterol or blood pressure. Your cholesterol is not going to be affected. In fact, these days, recent studies show how eggs are actually beneficial for people who have a high cholesterol. So you want to have things that are complex carbohydrates and protein that's going to help you throughout the day. Cereals are good. Some people have a habit of eating cereal in the morning, but be careful in the cereal that you choose, because some cereals are very high in sugar. They'll tell you, this cereal is without cholesterol, but the cereal actually has a lot of sugar in it. So you want to be very careful as to which brand cereals, and some cereals are pretty good, and so you want to be able to choose what you want. Of course, you want to have fiber, fruits, vegetables. These are important. It'll avoid constipation. And I know it doesn't sound very good because, it's Shahrul Ramadan, and, you're supposed to have a little bit of fun too with the food. But I got to tell you, be smart about what you eat, okay? You want to try and prevent heartburn as much as possible. You want to try and minimize spicy hot foods. I've written avoid, but I really mean minimize, because how can you not have spice in your food, especially in our culture? But, try and avoid or minimize it as much as possible, but try and avoid eating spicy foods just before going to sleep, if that's possible. Because when you're lying down flat, you tend to have a much higher chance of getting some acid go back into your esophagus. So a good healthy diet in Ramadan can have significant impact on blood pressure and cholesterol. When we started to do research in this area, I got to tell you, there are so many studies that have been done in people who fast and what impact fasting has. There is no question that over the long term, fasting has a very positive impact on blood pressure. And it certainly has a very positive impact on your cholesterol and your lipid profile. So it's really there's some really good positive effects that come from good meal planning and healthy eating in Shahrul Ramadan. On the other hand, if you're fasting 18 hours, but for the 6 hours that remain, you're just loading and making up for those 18 hours ain't going to be no benefit, from a medical perspective. In fact, you may find out the Shahru Ramadan, your cholesterol is worse. So it depends on how you plan it and how you organize yourself. Of course, the challenge is that once you have, created a healthy meal plan in the holy month of Ramadan, you maintain that healthy meal plan after the holy month of Ramadan. The same principles that you would think about when you're thinking of spirituality. The holy month of Ramadan is supposed to energize you as far as spirituality and proximity to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is concerned. And the whole point is that after the holy month of Ramadan, you need to make sure that you maintain and sustain that spirituality within yourself. Same thing applies to your health. It's an opportunity for you to become healthier in Shahru Ramadan and then to maintain that after the holy month has completed. And that brings me on to making the most of fasting. And that means that's the third M, that is making the most of fasting. And that means that you focus on some of the unhealthy habits that you may have and that you may be able to give up. The most obvious one, obviously, is stop smoking. This is the best time for you to start smoking. If you are a smoker, then you're not going to be smoking for 18 hours. And what you don't want to do is break your fast with a cigarette, right? Because you want to take this opportunity and help yourself in giving up smoking. You can slap on a nicotine patch even during the day whilst you're fasting if it's going to help you. Ayatollah Sistani allows you, and I've checked with ulama regarding this, allows you to put on a nicotine patch, and that will give you that nicotine throughout the day, that from the nicotine patch, and it will really help you with your smoking. The idea is to not put on your nicotine patch for the 18 hours you're fasting, and then when it's iftar time, you take your nicotine patch off and you smoke 20 cigarettes in 6 hours. That's not what you want to do. What you want to do is to take this time, give up some of your bad habits. It's the best time to do it. Control your junk food ingestion. You're not going to have a lot of time for junk food anyway, because you'll all be reciting Salatul Layl, and you'll all be doing lots of ibadah. So you're not going to have a lot of time for junk food anyway. So use that to make the most of it. If you want a more detailed information about healthy food eating habits, then there is the Canada Health Food Guide, and I've listed that URL on my slide, and I believe the slides are going to be uploaded on Ali's website, so you can access that from there, or you can even Google it, and you'll get the Canada Health Food Guide on Google. Medication management, it's very, very important. Make sure that you visit your family physician before the holy month of Ramadan. Too late in the holy month of Ramadan if you're visiting your family physician for the first time at that time. This is particularly for people who are, who have chronic illnesses. Of course, if you're young, healthy, then you don't need to visit your family physician before the holy month of Ramadan. But certainly if you have problems with some chronic illnesses, then you want to be able to visit your family physician. Particularly if you're on medications for certain illnesses like diabetes, high blood pressure, people who have chronic obstructive lung disease or chronic obstructive pulmonary disease, people who have congestive heart failure, even people who have antidepressants and sleeping pills. So because if you are a diabetic, as I've said before, most diabetics will be able to fast in the holy month of Ramadan. But what will be required is some changes to your diabetic medication. You have only a 6-hour gap, so you're not going to be able to take your medications the way you used to take them when you were not fasting. You're going to have some adjustments made to your diabetic medications in order for you to have a safe fast. Go and visit your physician, because every person is different. Your blood sugars are different during the non-fasting months. You're on different medications, and your physicians will make a decision as to which medications they may even discontinue for 1 month and keep you on something else, or they may start for you. They may change their doses of those medications for you. People with high blood pressure, the same thing. When do I take my medication? Most of the medications can still be taken at Sehri time, especially if your blood pressure is not that high, and let's say you're only on one medication. But some medications, the physician may stop, because one of the medications for high blood pressure is a diuretic called hydrochlorothiazide, and that's how it decreases the blood pressure. Well, you may not need that diuretic in the holy month of Ramadan, because for 18 hours you're not going to be drinking anything anyway. So those are the kind of adjustments that your physician is going to have to make in order to make sure that you have a healthy fast. You have to be able to visit the physician. Diabetics especially must visit their physician, their doctor, prior to the holy month of Ramadan, because they'll need frequent monitoring of their blood sugar, and they will definitely require medication changes, especially if you're fasting in a country where it's summertime and the fasts are extremely long. You will need to also monitor your kidney function, especially if you're prone to dehydration. And the most important thing that I want you to understand is physicians will do what's called risk stratification. Now, it's very important to understand that when you go and visit your family physician, you plan the visit accordingly. Many of us have family physicians who are not Muslim. And so if you go to a family physician, you tell them, I want to fast for 18 hours. I won't be eating anything. I won't be drinking anything. And he's going to look at you and he's going to say, oh, you're nuts, man. I'm not going to allow you to do that. Because they don't have the full information. So when you go and visit your physician, make sure, number one, that you don't book a regular visit with your family physician. Because a regular visit with a family physician, at least in Canada, and I know in the UK as well, and is 7 minutes to 10 minutes. You want to book what's called a counseling visit with your family physician, and that's at least a 30-minute visit. When you go to visit your family physician, you have to, especially if they're non-Muslim, you have to explain to them and say, look, this is, the holy month of Ramadan, and fasting is an extremely important article of faith for me, and I would really like to follow this particular obligation that God has made on us. And I want you to let me know, and then you say to your physician that with this particular obligation, I realize that, I may be at risk for fasting, but I want you to stratify that risk for me into high, medium, or low, because that will allow me to make sure that I fast in a safe way. You let the physician know that, yes, there are cases, there are times where if I have any feeling that I'm going to get sicker, I'm going to prolong my illness, I'm going to prolong my pain, and if that's based on reasonable grounds, then the religion actually makes it forbidden for me to fast. So there is a very, very important safety net that the religion gives me, and tells me that your health and your body's health, not harming your body is much more important for you than, forcing that person to fast. But it is a conversation you need to have with the physician and really impress on them that this is the reason why, you're coming to this, so that, you can have a partnership with your physician, and your physician will help you to make sure that if you're fasting, you can fast safely. What he will do is he will stratify you in 3 different ways: high risk, medium risk, and low risk. For low risk people, there is no problem. He'll say, you're pretty good. There is no major problems with you. You can fast. For high risk, where let's say it's a really brittle diabetic, the person has quite severe kidney failure, your heart disease is really bad, they have severe congestive heart failure. It's very clear for a physician to say that, look, if you fast for 18 hours, you're going to be, risking your life. There's going to be irreversible harm for you, and you should not be fasting. But most of the people will fall in the middle or the medium risk category. And that's where you're going to have to work with the physician. A physician may say to you that, okay, you're a diabetic, you have high blood pressure, I'm going to make some changes to your medication. Let's do this together. I want you to monitor your blood sugars. I want you to monitor your blood pressure. I wanted you to see me weekly during the holy month of Ramadan. He may even decide to do a blood test, to monitor your kidney function after the first 7 fasts or 5 fasts or 10 fasts to make sure that your fasting is, at a reasonable level. Having that kind of partnership with your physician will really help you make sure that you're fasting in the most safest and secure way. I talked about some special precautions with heart medications, congestive heart failure, and so on and so forth. I want to just let you know, do not adjust your own medication without the advice of a physician. It's not a good practice for you to say, well, I'm taking this much diabetic medication, it's an 18-hour fast, I'll just have it, and I'll just take half. You really, need to do it with your physician and make sure that he's monitoring you, because it can be quite dangerous if you don't know what you're doing. The last M is on movement. And I want to just emphasize that, of course, exercise is very important, but you need to be smart about it in the holy month of Ramadan. You should not be doing your 45-minute intensive treadmill and pumping iron, in the holy month of Ramadan, because it's going to dehydrate you really fast. You should avoid intense exercise, especially in the middle of the day. The best exercise you should be able to do is a mild exercise, such as just a walk. Probably the best time is about an hour or 45 minutes before iftar, because after that you can go straight in and you can just have iftar. But it should be just a very leisurely, mild walk. You want to try and avoid dehydration. Some of the things that you can do is, if you're going to the mall, if you're going to the mall, you can park your car a little further away, so you're at least walking to the car rather than looking for a spot right next to the handicap spot, so that it's minimal walking that you need to do. So these are the kind of things that you should be monitoring. Somebody's asking a question, can you give solution to blood clot issue, as I'm prone to it and need to take some sort of exercise for keeping it good? Yeah, there are things that you can do for blood clots. It's not a solution. There are some medications that you can take if you're prone to blood clots. There are some blood thinners that you can take. And certainly in the holy month of Ramadan, it may be a good idea to take that. It's something that you should really discuss with your physician, because he will give you some very good advice on what blood thinners you potentially could take in the holy month of Ramadan to keep you safe for that particular month. So in conclusion, most people will have no problems with their health whilst fasting in Shahr Ramadan, provided you plan it out properly and you focus on the 5 M's. Healthy fasting strategy will allow you to be able to concentrate and focus on the spiritual benefits of this great month. The important thing is that if you're fasting properly, if you're healthy in your fasting, it will help you to concentrate more. Otherwise, what's going to happen is you're going to get to the mosque, at 7 o'clock or whatever it is, right? Because a lot of the mosque programs are going to happen prior to iftar, and you'll get to the mosque and you'll be really very tired. You won't be able to concentrate. The community will have so many spiritual programs. The du'as will be projected on, with meaning. You will have some top-notch speakers who will come to, who will really be prepared, and they'll come to energize you spiritually. But you'll be sitting there and nothing is going to go into your head. Nothing will penetrate your brain because you're just too tired, you're too fatigued, you haven't planned it well, and you will not benefit from the spirituality of this holy month. If you plan it out properly, then this could be the best fasting month for you, because you'll gain so much with having a long fast, but being able to do it properly and still be able to concentrate and focus on your worship to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And so I'm going to end there. We have about 15 minutes or so. I think the meeting was booked for an hour. So you can type any questions you want, and I'd be happy to, inshallah, answer your questions. Thank you very much. So I have a question here. Can I keep my legs elevated to avoid blood clots? Yes, you can keep your legs elevated. The best way to avoid blood clots is also making sure that you're moving around. So you don't want to just be in bed all day, and that's going to help also to avoid getting blood clots. Breaking fast at 9 p.m. and suhoor at 3 a.m. will disturb the sleep. Can I keep awake till 12 midnight and do my suhoor at that time? I really would advise against it. I would still say to you that you want to wake up at 3 o'clock and have something. Have at least maybe a couple of glasses of water. You can have, one of the fruits you could have is a banana, but have a yogurt, have something at 3 o'clock, because it's going to help you for the rest of the day. If you just go to sleep at midnight and then leave it till the day, you're basically ending up, fasting, almost, a 20-hour fast, a 19, about 20-hour fast. It's really, really important for you to, in my opinion, to wake up at school. It's fun, man. Just do it. It's good. Thank you. Can we do, okay, sorry. Okay, wait. Let me just check here. Okay, so the question here is, can we do biking early morning right at sunrise while fasting? I would avoid that. And that is that it's not about just doing it in early morning, sunrise, when it's not that hot, but it depends on how much biking you do. If you're biking, you're losing a lot of water. And so, if you're biking a great distance, you already have lost a lot of water before, you get to work or something. You want to try and minimize that as much as possible. Due to sleeping pills, if someone breaks his fast and after, when having sleeping pills just to sleep after, can he still fast on this month? I'm not sure what the question is. Let me come back to that, because I'm trying to figure out what the actual question is. Can the weekend session be an hour later, especially in Ramadan? It's a bit early for Vancouver. Yeah, tell me about it. It is a bit early for Vancouver. I have hypothyroidism, and sometimes I feel very much energyless in the last part of the fast. Any diet that can help, because often I forget to take my meds. You should really not forget to take your thyroid medications. But remember, thyroid medications have a long effect. So if you're taking your thyroid medications regularly and you continue them in the holy month of Ramadan, you won't be getting tired because of the hypothyroidism. You'll be getting tired for other reasons. And you can take your thyroid medication at any time you want, outside, of course, of the fasting time. So you can take it at iftar, you can take it at suhoor. Either way, it's okay, because it has a long-term effect. Try not to forget your medications. I always advise my patients that when you're doing iftar or you're waking up for suhoor, have your medication bottles right on the dining table exactly where your food is so that you're not forgetting it. Does the doctor have to see because sleep pills are when someone eats food and is not high risk? Um, well, no, not necessarily. If you're just on sleeping pills, you don't necessarily have to go and see the physician. Just make sure that if you're on sleeping pills, your window is very small, and you have to. My advice is you still wake up for suhoor. So you want to be able to time your sleeping pills in such a way that you're able to have a good sleep following that. So you may, depending on whether you have to go to work or not, you may take your sleeping pill, at suhoor time and then sleep in, till the late part of the morning, early part of the afternoon. So it doesn't necessarily mean that you have to go and see them, but you need to make sure that if you're not sure how you need to change the times of your sleeping pill, that you're actually taking some advice from a physician. In general, it's good to have 6 to 7 glasses of water on average during a day. Maher Ramadan, would one have 6 to 7 glasses between 10 to 3? Is there such a thing of having too much water? There is something called, there is of course something, it's to have too much water. It's going to be pretty rare in the holy month of Ramadan to actually have too much water. But the amount of water you should have in Ramadan, 6 to 7 glasses, probably about right. What you're saying is you want to take, if you're healthy and you don't have any major illnesses, heart disease or congestive heart failure or anything like that, then you should be having 2 liters a day, 2 liters of water a day. If you don't know what 2 liters of water a day is, then go and buy a milk carton. That's a 2-liter carton, and use that as your measuring for how much water you should be taking during the day. If you are if you're a heart patient, you have congestive heart failure, you have some problems, you're on a diuretic, then your water is going to need to be adjusted in some way before you can make the right right amount of drink. But you need at least 1,800 mil to 2 liters of water, especially in the holy month of Ramadan. One of the best indications are when in the morning when you wake up, to go to work or to go to school or whatever, and you go to the washroom, you want to make sure that the urine is reasonably clear. If your urine early in the morning is like very yellow and concentrated, it means you haven't taken enough water. So you want to have a urine that's reasonably clear. Of course, by the end of the day of the fast, your water, if you go to the washroom again, your urine will become a little bit yellow because it's going to get concentrated at that time. But that's kind of some of the ways you can think about how much water you're taking and and that's one of the ways you monitor. Remember the M of monitoring your health? That's how you may be able to monitor whether you're taking adequate water or not. Are there any particular fruits you recommend for constipation? Any fruit that has a fibrous component to it is very helpful for constipation. I don't know, Sister Zainab, where you live, but I gotta tell you that if you're in a place where you can get papayas and mangoes and things like that, these are fruits that are really good for constipation. You want to take lots of fiber as well as vegetables are very good for constipation. So combination of vegetables and fruits really will not, you won't get constipated. If you don't take fibers and fruits, I guarantee you in the summer of long fast, you will actually get constipated. One of the fitness trainers advised on taking casein protein shake for suhoor. How far is it advisable? Some protein shakes are fine. I'm not quite familiar with the casein protein shake. Some protein shakes are fine, but a lot of protein shakes are very high in sugar. So make sure that if you're taking a protein shake, that you're taking the right protein shake, which is not very high in sugar. And that's the most important thing that you have to figure out. Besides water, what other liquids can we take? You can take you can have other liquids, but as I said to you before, be very careful. Fruit juices are very high in sugar, so you want to try and minimize that as much as possible. Caffeine loaded drinks like coffee and tea and stuff. Yes, of course, you're going to have some of that because we're all addicted to caffeine anyway. So you're going to have some of it, but you don't want to overload yourself on that. So I think that these are some of the things that you can take. I would really ask you to avoid as much as possible, the cola drinks and things like that, and energy drinks. Those are something that you really need to avoid. Somebody's asking about sleeping pill, clonazepam. Should doctor be seen after breaking fast when you go to bed? I would really advise you to go and see your physician because it's a longer acting benzodiazepine. So it's one of these pills that's longer acting. He may want to switch you to another medication for the holy month of Ramadan, which is a shorter acting medication that may be better for you. So yeah, I would ask you to visit him. I've noticed whenever I eat rice during suhoor time, I get hungry by midday afternoon. Do you know why this happens? Rice is actually a complex carbohydrate, and you can have rice at suhoor time. It depends what you have rice for. If you combine it with yogurt, so you get some protein with it as well, then I think that will make a very good combination. But if you're having rice, with, a nice sort of, karai gosh or, nihari or something like that, then you're going to get those peaks that I talked about, and the rice is not going to make a lot of difference. So what you want to do, if you want to have a brown rice, that's even better. For me, it really tastes yucky, so I don't like it. But if you're kind of into that kind of stuff, so you can have brown rice. But otherwise, combine your rice with some bulking agent and protein, and you'll find that probably it will last a lot longer. Pao are very good. Okay, that's good. Thank you for that suggestion. Thanks, Mohsin Bhai. There is absolutely no problem in chewing pan after it's I would highly advise it. No, of course. These are things that some people have these habits, and depending on what kind of pan it is, I'm sure pan once in a while in the holy month of Ramadan, there should be absolutely no problem with that. Fruits have sugar too. What effect do they have on diabetics? Of course, fruits do have sugar in them, and they will increase sugar in the diabetics. But it depends on the type of fruit, and it depends on whether you have it as a fruit juice or whether you have it as a whole fruit. If you have it as a fruit juice, what happens is that the fruit juice basically takes away all the fiber, and all you get is the sugar, right? But if you actually have the fruit itself, you actually take the fruit and the fiber of the fruit with the sugar, and that absorption takes a longer time. So yes, fruits do have sugar, and if you're a diabetic, you do want to take extra care if you're having fruits, especially for suhoor. But it may be important for you to have certain fruits, as part of your diabetic meal plan to manage your diabetes during the holy month of Ramadan. So you need to balance that out. Doctor, what about infused water with lemon, cucumber, berries? That's all very good, Mullah Sahib. You can have infused water. Of course, one of the things is that research in this area, Agha himself, allows you to actually, Agha Sistani allows you to have an intravenous, even if the intravenous contains glucose. Ayatollah Khoury did not allow that, but Ayatollah Sistani does allow that. So somebody was asking me if we could set up some beds in the mosque, and at 4 o'clock or 5 o'clock a whole bunch of people come and we just give them intravenously. I'm not sure that's a very good idea. Maybe in the future somebody will think about that. But it's something that to think about. But infused water is fine. Some of these vitamin drinks that you get, like the triple X vitamin drink, and they are very high in sugar. In fact, some of them are higher in sugar than cola drinks. So be very careful when you buy those drinks. Coconut water is actually really healthy for you, but I'm not sure if it's the best thing in the holy month of Ramadan. I'll tell you why. Because coconut water actually is a bit of a diuretic. And that's one of the reasons why it helps people with high blood pressure. So if you have a lot of coconut water, it is going to make you lose water more. So if you drink coconut water, and I mean by drinking coconut water, I mean fresh coconut water, right? The canned coconut water you get is full of sugar. But the fresh coconut water you can certainly drink, but really in moderation. It may not be that helpful in fasting, especially in the summer months. Yes, now I knew this question was coming. Thank you for this question, which is fresh fruit juice made at home. Fresh fruit juice made at home, definitely better than the juice that you buy in the supermarket. But most of the juicers that I have seen also take away all the fiber of the juice and all you of the fruit, and all you get is the juice. So whilst it is better than the juice that you buy in the supermarket, I still think it's not the best, because you're taking away the fiber of the fruit and you're just focusing on the juice itself. And so I would be cautious about that. Does watermelon help for diabetics? I read that it helps in decreasing the glucose level. I'm not sure there's any evidence that it helps in decreasing the glucose level, but watermelon is good. It's good for everyone, including diabetics. It's a great source of water. So there's a lot of people who have a habit of having watermelon in the holy month of Ramadan, and this is a good practice to have. It'll hydrate you quite well. I answered most of the questions, I hope, and I'm assuming, Murasa, we are going to end the session now. Good luck, inshallah, and if you fast, plan it properly, I am sure your fast will go really well. You'll be able to focus on the importance of the spirituality of this month, and most importantly, of course, you will remember me in your ascending du'as, inshallah. Thank you very much. Manana, should I just close now or exit? Yeah? Thank you very much for listening, everyone.